Hey there, UW fans. I'm Dr. Andy Lovelace. I've taught at the University of Washington for about 20 years. In that time, I've taught about 20,000 students. I'm a teaching professor, which means I don't really have a normal active research component to my job. I am going to make this video as a bit of a introduction to something I would really like to work on. I have several colleagues that want to work with me. I'm totally new to the idea of grants. I have spoken to several people on campus, but it's often unclear how a teaching faculty member can easily get access to some of these grants without allying to others. And so I'm looking for help in funding. The funding would support summer. I would want to pay basically kind of a month's salary for a couple colleagues to help me with this. So we're talking in the order of $10,000 to $20,000 to help support time for people to help me with these ideas. Of course, this project could be bigger, and I'm just trying to connect. So just want to have this so that I can share what it is. I've shared this around campus. I've connected with many people. My goals are to connect with more. This is something, I'm not trying to publish anything. I just think this needs to happen. Okay. So let me go through some pieces of it. So I've been teaching at UW since 2005. I've taught about over 20,000 students. I teach about 400 students a quarter. I teach these gateway courses, the calculus courses, the courses that lead to everything, the courses that students call weed out classes, which really hurts me to hear that. I've won the Distinguished Teaching Award. I won the UW Honors Excellence Teaching Award. I won the Panhellenic Faculty Member of the Year Award. So I've won a few things. Students have been happy with me at times. But I do want to say a few things. So for me, the biggest challenge of the job is mitigating and managing student distress. What happens is we have our first exam, and there are students that get a B, and they are distraught. They're messaging me, they're angry, they're mad at me, they're fighting about the grade, and it changes the dynamic of everything I do. It makes learning not joyful. And it also is unclear when that student how I should reply to them. And I have 20 years of data, emails, all this stuff I could go through, source information, things students have asked, how I replied, what worked, what didn't, but no one knows what I've done. And I really would like to run that information by others and create a global resource that instructors in our department and other departments could use so that we can reply better to students and help students find the path that they need. I want all our students to have a path. I don't want them to think they got to be in calculus and their life is over, because there are so many students that say that to me. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've written 2 letters of recommendation for students that are transferring out of UW because they got to be in my class or B in their other classes, and they don't feel like they can get the major they want. This is a big problem. There's reasons that this problem exists. We have limited space. But we could deal with that by marketing, explaining, dealing with students. But one of the best ways would be if I had some more input, people like me, teaching these gateway courses so that we can say the right words to immediately have an intervention at the right moment and help students see that they have other paths to success at UW. UW is a wonderful place, lots of majors. But if you're focusing on one thing, it could not be, maybe not as good. Okay, and the types of distress I'm talking about are wide-ranging. Okay, so I would really like, the project would be this. I can lay it out for you. The project would be, we would spend a couple months going through my emails of others, talking to former students, possibly sending out a bunch of surveys, and asking about these things. And in doing so, we categorize the type of distress we are encountering to get a scope of where are the issues. We'd also talk to other faculty. So this would be collecting what are the types of distress And so what I'm talking about is a student did poor on an exam. That's the big one I face, is they did poor on an exam, and because of it, they think their life is over. And some of that is what they're hearing from other students. Some of it's what they're hearing from advisors. I would like to flush that out and figure out where that pressure is stemming from so that we can address it correctly. Students that are interested about anxiety about math, anxiety about what's going on in their life. I have students that come to me and immediately ask for a retake. I have students that want to retroactively drop things because they come to me and say they had a family distress. I had a student just 2 weeks ago say that they were attacked and are dealing with campus support. That's a more extreme situation. I had another student that had last week, they had their grandfather pass away and they're dealing with that and they didn't. So these are regular occurrences in classes I teach. I teach 480 students a quarter. And these are things that have made my job really challenging to try to find the right words. And when I've reached out, it's unclear often what the right words are or where I get support. Safe Campus has been a great resource, and I'm going to meet with them. I've been meeting with student success coaches. I've met with the STARS program. I've met with the associate dean to ask her about this. But each of them, it's unclear where I would get. They're supportive of my ideas, but it's unclear where I would get time and support to put to this. The other reason I'd like to have an official grant, even if it was for like $50, is because that might open doors for me. I really want to sit down with the advisors in these other departments, and if I don't have an official project, it's just some guy bothering them. So I need the official. I've kind of been thinking, even if I can't get a grant, could I have a provost say, this is valuable, open doors to this guy? That's what I want. And I don't want to be attacking engineering or any department. I just want us to get to the table together so that I can know the best words to support my students. I have students that message me because they're way behind, like they haven't done anything for a few weeks. One thing I've been trying is when I notice students aren't doing homework, I'm messaging them. That's fairly unique. Usually we don't do that. Some people say, well, if they choose not to do it, they're not going to do it. But the volume of this is so big, I think people don't understand. In some of my classes, I'll have like 30% not doing stuff. And by messaging them, I get several of them to actually do something and care about their education. All right. DRS issues has become really large. There's some things around that where I think on the instructor level, I could provide resources to help. Religious accommodation, just a particular one, and I've had more of that. We sometimes are specific things where students ask for a regrade on every single problem. There's like a system for asking for regrades, and sometimes they're really kind of rotten to the TAs. And I think all of that stems from this pressure. These are things that are not because of the course. There's things from someone outside of our courses, but our teaching faculty are having to deal with the fallout of this perception that the course is a weed out. And then there's extreme trauma that we deal with a few times a quarter. And how do we deal with it correctly? We do have some support on that. We've gotten some materials, but I would like to collect this in one resource with examples of email from a student, how we replied, email from a student, how we replied. I've been doing that with my colleagues, and they've said it's really valuable. I would like to set up something that's on a larger scale, and I have plenty of data to do it. And I have a couple other people that are teaching faculty that would happily do it with me. But I really want to get them support. I don't need support, but I would like to pay them to help me with this. I just want this to happen. Other things. So my method is this. Here's what I've done. Before the quarter starts, and many people do these things, but I email and contact my students before the quarter even starts, usually 3 or 4 days. And I say, okay, here's what the course is about. I try to speak hopefully, try to get them excited, post a video, and then I make a welcome survey. And the welcome survey has to have the following questions. For me, it says, what city are you from, which high school, and where is that? And then tell me something mundane or interesting about yourself. And students will fill a page with this. They're desperately wanting to share and connect. And this is part of another idea I have, which is we need ways for students to share this so that when a student contacts us in distress, we can pull up a little dossier on them of things that might be more informative. If all I have is the email from the student, it's not helpful. It doesn't give me the full picture. Okay? And then a few times a term, I have to send these kind of heart-to-heart messages to the whole class, try to get people on track, refocused. When a student emails me in distress, I pull up their record, I pull up their responses, and I use all of that to reply in a way that's most helpful. That requires work, and so I'd like to set it up in a way that would be easy for future instructors to do. I thank them for reaching out. There's a very careful wording I use, and I'd like to run that by a psychologist to see how that's helpful. I point them to resources. I am not a psychologist. I've had people say you shouldn't be telling them what to do, but I have to be the one to interact at that point. And so I point them to where they need to go, to the advisors they need. In terms of the course, I try to talk about bigger issues. Like if they're asking for an extension on the homework, I'm like, okay, here's the policy. But the bigger issue is this exam, how can you do well? And I've had a lot of students really appreciate that approach. And I think it has made for successes. So that's dealing with the situation. I would like to run everyone on campus has to deal with that. I'd like to run those emails by a psychologist, by Safe Campus, and just have them give me feedback. There's this great group called Be Real that helps students in distress. It would be helpful because that's a key moment. We don't want students walking away with this negative interaction. We can handle it better. But the other piece of this is mitigation strategies. So I do that by informing students how to study. They've been doing this for years, making videos, making reviews, talking in class about how to prepare so you can do well. After the first exam, I have students do an exam reflection survey where they have to answer a couple questions about how they studied, trying to make the exam more of, this is your opportunity to reflect. It's a conversation between you and I. Now that's hard when the grade is so pressurized. And so that's why I'm hoping I can get together with advisors in other departments and we can talk about this a little bit. Okay. The other thing I've been doing is emailing proactively students that haven't done any homework for a week or two. Now that's part of my routine. But I say, well, everything all right? Do you want to talk to an advisor? And it's worked in that some of those students drop early rather than lingering and having it hurt their grade. They go talk to an advisor. I email students that have really low exam scores on the first exam and try to give them an outlook of where they should go. I think we could standardize some of that in a way that would help. We don't want students to just bury their head in the sand. Also, it's not really the job of the instructor to deal with this. I don't want other instructors having to do all the stuff I've tried. But if we can standardize it a little bit and give some advice and make it easy for instructors to do, we can help those students early and maybe get them out of the course where they need to go. But I really want to just have guidance for these students that are struggling, do poorly on a test. They think they have to have a 3.0. I want to know the best words to say. And I have lots of examples of things I've done. So what I'm really looking for is, what are the links and resources that should go in emails? I know a lot of them, but I would like to run our resources, create one central resource made by an instructor for instructors, and then run that by everyone else on campus, Center for Teaching and Learning, all the advising offices, psychology, Safe Campus, Be Real, STARS program, PI program, all the groups that help students, academic success coaches, CLUE, and get everyone to weigh in on best practices for how to reply and mitigate and get feedback on what I've been doing for 20 years. There seems to be a lot of interest in this project, but despite meeting with people for 6 months, it's unclear where time and funding is going to come from, partially because I'm not a tenure track faculty. So I need help. And I really would love to start working on this summer. I have several teaching colleagues that want to do this with me and have been told they don't have summer support because of budget constraints. So if anyone has any ideas where I can go for for something like this. Because I'm a teaching faculty, I'm not involved in grant writing. I've asked a few people about grant writing on campus, and they say, well, everyone pretty much does that on their own. I could use connection. Thank you for listening.